Let's get more on this now from senior Pentagon strategist Robert Maginnis. He's the author of 8 books on national security and foreign policy and joins me from the U.S. state of Virginia. First off, I'd like to hear what you make of Russia's pullout of Kherson. Does this indicate Russia is facing major problems with its military?
Well, they certainly do face major problems. We've seen significant losses of armored vehicles. And of course, depending upon who you believe with regard to their casualties, they've been significant, certainly enough to prompt Vladimir Putin to call up 300,000 through mobilization. So, yes. Now, with winter coming, and it does get cold in that part of the world, there's good reason to believe that he wants to pull his troops to the east and south of the Dnieper River, because the Ukrainians are using to good effect their armored vehicles and especially their artillery. And you don't want a bunch of Russians on the west side of the river to be cut off and, really stranded and perhaps taken captive. So it's a prudent field commander's decision, whether or not it was made by Sergei Shoigu or the local commander or Vladimir Putin himself, doesn't really matter. These are prudent decisions to, as they indicated, to retain their readiness and to spare lives. And I can understand that. They want to use them elsewhere. And after all, they've already captured a large chunk of eastern Ukraine.
And you already touched on my next question. What does this all mean for Russia's ability to defend the region east of the Dnieper River, as well as Crimea?
Well, of course, the Russians are at least alleged to be short of certain types of artillery. They've been firing artillery by significant numbers for months now. And it would appear as if even their aircraft are not are having the effect that they ought to have. So, as long as the West provides HIMARS and 155 artillery shells and other platforms and are certainly countering the air defense capability, whether UAVs or fast movers, then it would appear as if the Ukrainians will continue to have a reasonably good upper hand against the Russians. Now, that doesn't mean that Putin's not going to pull something out of his back pocket. And of course, he continues to threaten the world through the weaponization of energy and food and of course, rattle his nuclear arsenal. It's threatening that he might actually use those. And I think, that's always something we have to keep in the back of our minds.
You mentioned with the winter coming, and we know it gets quite cold there in Ukraine. How is that likely to affect the strategy on the battlefield on either side?
Well, you have to somehow figure out how to keep soldiers warm and fed. The caloric intake of an average soldier during the cold weather, really doubles that it is during the summertime, and you have to provide shelter. Now, in the midst of active combat, that becomes a real problem. Now, we have seen reports that indicate they're digging in on the east and south of the Dnieper River, and of course, that would indicate that they're willing to fight to, some effect in that particular area. But we'll have to wait and see. There's so much that's fluid in this environment. And as long as NATO and the West supply the Ukrainians, I don't think that this is going to move significantly either west or east for, certainly in the next few months.
All right, senior Pentagon strategist Robert Maginnis, thank you.